Hey everybody, Mike Guglielmi from Sons of a Pitch Soccer Podcast. Nick, MLS is back. We've got soccer. Dude, it's only like
It's
a month
back.
away. Soccer is back.
It's back, Mike. Oh, I'm pumped. Like, we're going to have a tournament. There's going to be games made up. There's going to be live action. We're going to be talking about something other than the coronavirus. It's going to be wonderful. So thrilled to be doing this, Mike. And also, I want you to know that this is genuine and pure excitement and happiness, not the fake stuff you heard on the MLS show today. By the way, terrible production, terrible. I think we got better graphics on our show as my picture cuts out. Still, I think a little bit better of a production job on our weekly independently funded podcast, independently supported with a single sponsor than the MLS just did, putting on a show to bring back their season. Anyway, that's my little soapbox rant.
It was ugly. Very, very ugly. I mean, we're an independent podcast doing our thing here with, trying to learn all this new stuff. And, man, we've got Charlie Davies, sitting there with, 8 ping pong balls with Sharpie written on them. Like, hey, we're here to do the draw. Like, what is this?
Right?
What is going on? I'm pretty
sure
horrible.
Charlie Davies' salad bowl is going to have its own Twitter account if it doesn't already.
Yeah, it was
The
bad.
utensils to do this, it wasn't what I expected to see from a league who is competing for viewership, who is getting their sport back before any other one in the country. I expected something better, and it's funny, even on Chicago Sports, Lawrence Holmes on 670 The Score was even praising the MLS above Major League Baseball for getting their tournament set, for getting everything ready, for focusing on the play and the players rather than focusing on the money and rights and all this other stuff. And for a Chicago sports radio show to give credit to soccer over the Cubs and the Bears, it's huge. And I just wish the MLS would have done a better production. That's all.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's where you get, MLS. They took our advice to get out and, kind of jump out in front of the rest of the sports. And you know what? It is what it is, but soccer's back. We've got soccer to look forward to in June. Well, not in June. They're going to start training in June, but in July. And we can start looking forward to that. So we want to talk a little bit about the draw. I mean, where are these clubs at? Who are they going to be playing against? What do these teams look like coming on July 8th when this all starts? So that's kind of what we're focused on now. And, I kind of want to get right into it here with Group A. I mean, we've got a pretty strong group. So Group A, Nick, why don't you take us through kind of the thought process here of what it looks like. You've got 6 teams in this group, 4 teams in every other group.
Right.
What's the deal here?
Right. So they moved Nashville to the Eastern Conference for the tournament. That you got 14 Eastern Conference teams, 12 Western Conference teams, especially with Miami coming in as the expansion side. So in order to keep the groups an even number of teams, you've got 6 teams in Group A and then 4 teams in Groups B through F. So Group A having 6 teams being Orlando, Inter Miami, New York City, Philadelphia, Chicago, and Nashville. Then each group has a top seed. MLS set it up was Orlando, Group A, top seed. You're the host, quote-unquote, city. They're playing down at Disney's Wide World of Sports. So Orlando's considered the home team, the host team. They get the top of Group A. Toronto and Atlanta, your 2 MLS Cup semifinalists from last season, they are the top seeds in Group C and E. And then in the Western Conference, Seattle and LAFC, the Western Conference semifinalists, get the top seeds, and RSL, who had the next highest point total in the Western Conference, gets to be a top seed in a group as well. Focusing back on Group A, like you said, Mike, you got Orlando and Inter Miami. They decided to put Inter Miami into this group to have that kind of marquee premier first game matchup, Orlando City, Inter Miami. I think that's a cool thing to do. yes, it's a little gimmicky. But you know what? Miami gets to have their first home game in the state of Florida. Granted, there won't be any fans there, but they get to have their first game back, kind of a pseudo home game. It's in Orlando, but it's there. They can manufacture a rivalry and marketing around it, and then of course you've got the New York City Philly rivalry. And personally, I would love to see Chicago Nashville build up its rivalry, very similar to the Blackhawks and the Predators. And I've seen those two fan bases go at it from a hockey perspective. I can't say too much. I don't think there's any baseball in and around Nashville other than Vanderbilt. But you've seen it a little bit with the Bears Titans. A lot of Bears fans get down to Nashville. So maybe this can build up some Chicago rivalry from a local perspective. The other thing to note about Group A is obviously they're not going to have a five-game schedule where every other team is 3. So they swapped it around a little bit. So you'll have to make sure you look at your respective teams to see what other 3 teams in the group are playing. I was worried, Mike, that you'd get a really, really strong team in Group A and then have a really, really weak team doesn't have to play them, and they have an advantage that way. But I think this is a pretty even group. What do you think about Group A, the 6 teams, the 2 Florida teams? What do you think?
Well, I mean, I think these 2 Florida teams being put in, and the fact that it got announced before the draw even happened, right? They say, hey, we're going to be in the state of Florida. We want Inter Miami and Orlando playing each other as like the kickoff match because it's the state of Florida. That right there just kind of threw the fix was in on this thing, right? So, I mean, you start to see in some of these other groups, we'll discuss a little bit about what teams, are playing who and what rivalries are in different groups, and we'll see that the fix was definitely in, especially after the poor performance of, the balls being written on by Sharpie and that kind of stuff. But overall for Group A, it's a strong group because of the 6 teams that are involved, right? So you kind of had to live the little guys, get them in to do their part. Orlando, obviously, the only reason why they're in this seat is because they're hosting it at ESPN's Disney Wide World of Sports, and then Miami because they're the Florida rival. And then you've got Chicago Fire, which are kind of looked at as a rough, not a rough team, but a team that's not going to be a top performer in MLS this season. And then Nashville, right? So the way that it breaks down to me, that it's the 6-team group, I like the fact that New York City kind of is in position. They're kind of given that first seed in a sense. Because they're the best team in that group, hands down. Philly might compete with them. Maybe Miami could play with them in a one-off, a single game scenario. But overall, New York City's kind of the host, the top seed in this group, and I like that. That's kind of the best thing to do because of the success that they had last season. So for me, the top teams in this group are New York City and Philly, and then followed, kind of by Chicago, Orlando, and then Miami and Nashville, 2 expansion teams. So overall, I'm pleased with the group, and I think that New York City fans and Philadelphia fans for sure will be excited about this matchup.
Oh, totally. And actually, we got a comment from one of our Twitter followers and frequent listeners, David Ruffin, who said, oh, this is perfect for Chicago. They're in with the other expansion teams. So just totally buying into our running joke that this season the Chicago Fire are an expansion team, new coaching staff, new ownership, new crest, uniform badge, new stadium. The Chicago Fire are an expansion team. They turned over half their roster on top of it. So it only fits that Chicago is with Nashville and Inter Miami in this group.
Right, totally.
And, oh, hey, Mike, we're picking up the views on YouTube here. Shout out. Amador Rojas is back for another live coverage. So, Amador, great to have you back,
sir.
Man. As well as Arturo Flores, Daniel Young, and Eric S. Thank you guys all for joining us.
Yes, and heads up to Daniel Young. He sent us some great messages after our last live episode, the podcast episode. I had a great conversation with him, and we'll be highlighting that in our next podcast recording for sure. So Thank you, Daniel, for sending that over. We'll talk about that conversation on Monday night, no doubt. And as well, Amador Rojas, thanks for coming back, man. Appreciate you jumping on the stream and hanging out with us as we talk about these groups. So as we talk about these groups, it's time to move right in to Group B. Group B, the Western Conference group, the first Western Conference group, the Seattle Sounders, being MLS Cup champions, they are the leader, right? The seeded team in this group. And they get FC Dallas, the Vancouver Whitecaps, and San Jose Earthquakes. And I have to tell you, Nick, as soon as I saw this draw start to go down and saw that Vancouver got into that group and Portland was still on the table, I said, if Portland ends up in the group with Seattle and Vancouver, this is going to be an all Cascadia group. There is no doubt in my mind that this is as fixed as it can get. And however, that did not happen. They threw in the San Jose Earthquakes, good friend of the show, Mike Kleeman, and a couple other San Jose Earthquake fans that follow us along. They should be pleased in that group because Vancouver and FC Dallas, although they have some decent talent on their teams, they're not, this kind of group is wide open. I think that Seattle takes the cake in this just because they're the champions, just because they have been in the playoffs as many times as they have. But, in a kind of regular season type aspect, I don't know how that works for Seattle. Sometimes they're a little slow when they start out in the regular season. So I kind of see Seattle, and I'm going to kind of go with a crazy little upset here with the Earthquakes coming out first and second. And just to let everybody know that's following, we're definitely going to be doing some group previews as this goes on. So we'll preview each group A, B, C, D, and so forth, in the midweek every week until this tournament comes up. So these are just quick little shots and predictions on who we think we'll see out of this breakdown, but we'll be coming in with a little bit more knowledge soon in a few days. So those are my thoughts. What are yours, Nick, as far as Group B goes?
Yeah, Group B, real quick. I think Seattle's the favorite just because of their talent, their experience. Like they've won 2 of the last 4 MLS Cups, been in a third. So I guess you got to give the edge. I saw some quotes from Mark Dos Santos, Vancouver's coach, like right after the draw, and he's like, "We're ready to play. We want Seattle. That's our rival. I hope it's the first game." Like that kind of determination and focus really makes me think like that mindset is going to trickle down to his play, and they're going to come out ready. So depending on who they get that first game, it could be San Jose, it could be Vancouver, kind of surprising some people. But I those are my thoughts, Mike.
Okay.
Given that, just kind of a general question here for you. If a team knows it has clinched and is advancing out of the group, because the top 2 teams from every group advance, and then it's the next 4 third-place finishers, right. I think, and then they'll go into a knockout bracket. Yeah. And then, by the way, $1.1 million purse to the winner of the tournament and a CONCACAF Champions League berth, so some incentive to play for. But if a team clinches, do you think that they kind of rest their guys that third game to advance in the tournament? Or do you think they play to win because these games actually count towards regular season point total, supporter shield?
Well, first off, I got to give Amador Rojas another shout out. I mean, dude, you love your shout outs, don't you? He's over here in the chat. Shout out, please. Again. Amador, we're shouting out, brother. Thanks for joining us. But overall, I think these teams play to win. Seriously. I mean, they're regular season games, but on top of that, you have these guys, they haven't played soccer in what's going to be 4 months by the time we get to this point. So you're going to have these guys ready to play. And, it's not like we're sitting in June of a regular MLS season where guys are getting tired. They've got to kind of rest the players and be smart about it. These guys are ready to rock and roll. They've got 5 subs a game from this point as well. So I think we're going to definitely see these guys going after it and really playing for their best.
I'm glad you brought up the 5 sub thing because the MLS has tweaked it a little from the rest of the leagues. So you get 5 subs, but you can only use it 3 times. So halftime subs don't count. Essentially, they're telling you got to use either multiple subs at a time or use them at halftime. You only get 5 game opportunities to use those 5 subs.
Okay, so we'll
And
have to do multiple subs at a time.
Right, or at halftime.
Or
or at halftime if they're not penalties.
Okay, so you basically have 4 opportunities to sub, so one will have to be a double if you use the halftime. If you don't use halftime, then you're obviously going to have to do 2 multiple subs at each time. Okay, so interesting take there from MLS for sure as far as that goes. Moving on from Group B, we look at Group C. We've got Toronto FC, who is the top seed in the group, as being MLS Cup finalists. And then in that group, we've got the New England Revolution, DC United, and Montreal Impact. So Montreal and Toronto FC, big-time rivals. We all know how that goes. TFC hates Montreal. Montreal hates TFC. And then you've got New England Revolution and DC United as well. Isn't that the Atlantic Cup, or is that DC and Red Bulls? I can't remember. But either way, New England Revolution and DC United, that's a hardcore rivalry as well. So a pretty good group from that aspect of it. I mean, Montreal started out this season hot. Toronto has started out with 4 points out of 2 games where they lost 2 points to San Jose at the last kick of the game in that opener. And DC United hasn't started out extremely strong. They had Paul Arriola out for a while. I still think he'll be out going into this tournament as well.
Sure.
But overall, I think a pretty decent group. There's no clear favorite. I mean, for me as a TFC fan, I'm like, all right, TFC. That's kind of a tough group because there's no Nashville. There's no Chicago Fire, sorry Fire fans, and whatnot. What are your thoughts on this group? I kind of see Toronto and I think New England with Bruce Arena and that kind of good team that they have. No crazy good individual players, but a good team. Those are my 2 coming out, plus a possible third. What are your thoughts on that one, Nick?
Yeah, I don't want to say it's a very balanced group because I'm still not sold on Montreal getting to TFC. DC United's potential, but at the same time, I think it's TFC's group to lose. I gotta say, Chris Machado, who jumped in on our chat, right? Ignore the first 2 games that happened this season. It's a new season. It's going to be fun. I agree with you, Chris. We got to ignore pretty much everything up until this point, especially for Toronto, who's got Pop able to come back from injury and log some minutes as well.
Unless he pulls his hamstring in training down in Orlando, which is a good possibility.
Yeah, exactly. And then we just heard Caicedo for New England underwent meniscus surgery, so he's out for the year. But third seed will make it in this group, I think. Yeah, I mean, if there's a lot of draws in this group, it could produce that advancing out. I think it's Toronto, but I'm really excited to see TFC. Mike, I know you're pumped. You're the TFC fan here. You're the Toronto boy. Like, how excited were you to see Toronto draw Montreal in this group?
When I saw it, I was like, all right, come on, guys. There was an article that was put out on the MLS soccer website where it was like, this is the dream draw that I want to happen. And Toronto was in the same group as Montreal. LA Galaxy and LAFC were in the same group. And, Portland and, Seattle. Like, there was all these groups that were, like, mashed together. And then when this happened, I'm like, come on, guys, really? You put Toronto and Montreal in the same group? Look, it is what it is. It's it's MLS at its finest. They're trying to they're going to try and be bringing ratings in. This is what this is all about, right? You're trying to get people to watch on TV, and we'll be live doing our live stream reactions. So make sure you guys subscribe down below and follow us along and hit that little bell so you get the notifications so you don't miss any of our live stream reactions. We're actually going to be hitting up a Napoli against Inter Milan Coppa Italia game this weekend coming up on Saturday afternoon, Central Standard Time at least. So make sure you check that out. We're going to be doing a lot of these live stream reactions for all of these MLS games as well. We see here in the comments, Daniel Young stating that this is TFC's a scary team, and yeah, they are. I think because I'm a bit of a homer, I'm a little bit, I get a little bit scared of being like, oh yeah, they're going to tear it up, But again, with Pozuelo with the full season to rest, if Josie Altidore is healthy, if Pablo Piatti's healthy, I mean, you look back at our team preview that we did of Toronto FC with Dwayne Rollins. Sports Podcasting Network. It basically all rides on if these guys are healthy and what the injury status is for TFC. And this is kind of a good setup for them, a short tournament that they could end up pulling it off because because that's what they're built for. So Group C is definitely it's a strong group because there's a lot of mediocrity really. When you've got Montreal, a good team coached by Thierry Henry, who started out hot. I was surprised with that. New England Revolution with Bruce Arena. You've got Greg Vanney and Toronto FC with the money that they've spent. There's a lot of DC United is a decent squad. So there's definitely a lot of talent in that group there. So let's move right along into Group D. Group D, you've got RSL is the headliner because of the total points. RSL with Sporting Kansas City, Colorado Rapids, and Minnesota United FC. Now, if you want to look at those two games that started out the season, Sporting Kansas City was on fire. Colorado Rapids, 2 stoppage time victories for them. Minnesota United kicked some ass in their games. So a really strong group there in the Western Conference as far as Group D goes. And RSL, who's the seeded team, kind of looks like the outside looking in. What are your thoughts, Nick?
Yeah, Group C is probably the most balanced group of the 6, and it's because all the teams are good. I think Colorado, a much improved Colorado team from last season, is the weakest on paper, but they're still a very good team. I'm a little bit of an SKC guy at heart, so I'm very, very happy to see them match up against RSL. I think that'll be an awesome game, maybe a budding rivalry. MLS doesn't manufacture rivalries, right?
No.
But anyway, I want to give SKC a slight edge over Minnesota, but Minnesota could win this group, and I would be not surprised one bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this Minnesota looks strong to start the season, and overall too, Sporting Kansas City was on fire. So Colorado, they've got a lot of talent. They've got a good head coach, so they could definitely make some noise as well. I definitely see 3 teams coming out of this group in Group D, no doubt about it. So now moving on to Group E, the Eastern Conference, the last Eastern Conference group of all the groups. Atlanta United is the host team in this one, and they've got FC Cincinnati, who was the expansion team last year. A lot of question marks around the new head coach. Is going to be the player Jurgen Locadia. Is he going to be part of this? Is he going to be moving back to England? As well as Red Bulls, right? New York Red Bulls come in, even though they're not a crazy good team talent-wise, they always do play well. Columbus Crew had improved like crazy in this first in the offseason as well as the first couple games of this season. So a really, really good group here because I think FC Cincinnati, if they've got Jurgen Locadia and Yaya Kubo and whatnot, they can cause some problems, in this group. It's not just an easy game for this one. So, I mean, I see Atlanta and probably the Crew coming out on top in this group with Cincinnati and Red Bulls definitely fighting for one of those third-place spots. But this is going to be a fun group to watch. MLS did a great job of making sure that all of these groups were very easily balanced and then making sure the 6-team group kind of had those easy teams on the side. So, I'm really excited about this tournament. I mean, looking at all these groups, I mean, it's unbelievable. So that's kind of where I'm at, Nick. What do you think as far as Group E? Who do you got coming out of this group?
I got to really quick talk about the conspiracy theory that you're promoting here, Mike, that they fixed it so you could have rivalries and balanced groups or whatever. So I watched MLS Extra Time after the draw, and Charlie Davies was on with the guys of the show saying, like, look, it wasn't fixed. Like, I made ping pong balls myself. This was totally random. I was as shocked as you were to see the 2 LA teams in the group. So according to Charlie Davies,
of
and
course,
according
Charlie
to the
Davies
guys on
Extra
Time, I mean, even Andrew Wiebe, the host of Extra Time, is like, no, it wasn't rigged. Like, we work for MLS, we know. But all right, whatever the case may be. If it's and they gave us rivalry games, hey, as a fan, that's fantastic. If it's not fixed and this is how it shook out, it's fun no matter how you watch it. So that's kind of my quick thought on that. But as far as Group E and Chris Machado's, he's the New York Red Bulls guy here. I
Yeah.
think. Let me find that graphic. Yep, there he is. Yes, sir. Let's go Red Bulls. He says. I think Red Bulls wins the group. I really do.
Wow. Okay.
I think that Red Bulls will beat Atlanta, beat Cincinnati, and at worst draw Columbus. I don't know if that's the order of the games they're going to play, but I think Red Bulls is the best. And it came down to Red Bulls and Atlanta for me. Here's where I drew the distinction. Atlanta is still gelling as a team a little bit. You've got Frank de Boer still trying to transition to some of his tactics. Has Barco and really peaked yet? Is he going to reach his peak? We don't know. There's still that pressure on him to the tournament format in Florida, large Hispanic population around him, even though there's no fans there. I think that the Red Bulls are made for this kind of tournament format. They really haven't shown it in MLS Cup playoffs, but they have the same system year over year. They have consistency. They've got enough talent. They're probably better on paper than Cincy, hopefully better on paper than Columbus. But you know what? And there's questions about Joseph Martinez too, right? Yeah. We don't know. So I think Red Bulls can come in and take this group, but it'll be that game between them and Atlanta will decide it.
All right, yeah. As Chris chimes in, he says, but I feel Red Bulls could fight for a top spot because remember ATL falls apart with Joseph. I'm thinking that's without Joseph, and agreed. I mean, you take that their main talisman striker out of there, it could be problems for Atlanta. And it's going to be some great matchups, no doubt. Rocky, thanks for joining. Rocky chimes in with his Cincinnati will need Thanos' glove to have a chance. Rocky, glad you're back here with us just as we transition into Group F, the last group of this tournament, the Western Conference group, where magically the LAFC representative was a director from 3252, and he comes in and says, let's go with number 4 because we make all of our decisions together. Well, he brings in the number 4, and guess who that is? The LA Galaxy, El Trafico. But then the representative from LAFC says, well, we don't want to call it the El Trafico because it's not going to be played in LA. Because it's going to be in Florida, we want to not call it that. Maybe call it something else. Stop it. LAFC and LA Galaxy is El Trafico, period. That's how it's going to be. And, it's, again, part of the fix is LA Galaxy and LAFC in the same group. Toronto and Montreal in the same group. Seattle and Vancouver, the Cascadia rivalry, in the same group. I mean, look, it is what it is. MLS has put their hand into this. The fact that Charlie Davies was on MLS Extra Time screaming about how this was not this was not fixed. It was being overlooked by their independent accounting firm. What was the independent accounting firm hanging out at Charlie Davies' apartment? I doubt it. Okay, so anyways, this group...
he printed that off his computer and stuck them in ping pong balls himself. It was terrible, and
sure
honestly,
did.
I expect Charlie Davies to do a better job of cutting out paper. Right. That was some pretty terrible, big hack job there, cutting the names out.
No doubt. But as far as Group F goes, LAFC, LA Galaxy, Houston Dynamo, and Portland Timbers. That's a strong group. I mean, Houston Dynamo is weak. They've got the new coach with Tab Ramos trying to put everything together. I can't see them getting out of this group with the strength of the Galaxy and, well, definitely LAFC, although there is a little side note to this. From what I have heard through this tournament and the negotiations from the Players Association was the fact that any of the players who have pregnant spouses do not necessarily have to go with the team. So that's kind of a player choice. It's not necessarily a mandate. If your wife or girlfriend is pregnant, you cannot come play, but it's a choice for these players. Now, apparently, Javier Chicharito Hernandez and Carlos Vela both have pregnant significant others. So the fact that that might be a little bit of a less of a draw to it, the fact that they won't be there, let me tell you something, they're probably going to be there, because unless they are due at that time, they're probably still going to be there, and then they travel home when their wives or girlfriends or significant others become ready to go. So we'll see how it all goes, but overall a strong group, especially with Portland. They've got good talent. The new guys that they brought in are really strong. So we'll see how that plays out. Nick, what do you think about the so-called group of death from some of our viewers here?
So I'm just sending a quick message out to Chris. He thinks it's LAFC in Portland. I mean, is Portland ready? Like, is their roster ready? Like, I like the addition of Jimmy Chara. He's going to shore up the midfield for them, or play out on the wing, provide them some attacking options too in transition. But have they been able to get over the loss of Brian Fernandez? I mean, that guy was supposed to be their goal scoring, and then he got released due to some personal issues. I believe there's some drug and alcohol, substance abuse type things. Which sidebar, can't wait to see grievance against the Mexican Federation and the Caja for hiding that from them prior to the transfer. But anyway, we'll see how that plays out. I think they've got a couple years to file a grievance or something like that. I just don't know if Portland's roster is ready to compete with as a complete roster as LAFC. Maybe they don't have as complete a roster as the Galaxy, but the Galaxy, they had been 2 seasons at least of like not having anything cohesive. It's either been dump it to Zlatan or kick the ball to someone else because you don't know what to do with it. Maybe during this offseason and some of this kind of impromptu training, it forces them to galvanize quicker. But I don't know. Is Chicharito going to be that striker that they want? Is legit going to step up and become a star for them? Like there's so many more question marks around LA. It's kind of between them and Portland to take that second spot. But we all know Houston's got a roster. We all know that they're just waiting to fulfill that potential, and maybe Todd Ramos can pull it out of them. I love it. I think it's a great group. Between group, where am I looking? Groups. I can't read my small typing here. Group D. Group D and F. I mean, those 2 groups are be the most fun to watch through and through.
Yeah, it was interesting because the poll on what is the toughest group for on MLSsoccer.com, they had Group F as the toughest group with LAFC, LA Galaxy, and Houston and Portland. And the easiest group they actually have was TFC, Montreal, New England Revolution, and DC United. So we'll see how that plays out overall. Make sure, thanks for joining us, everybody. And a shout out to our sponsors, Donovan Food Brokerage, as well as Nice Premium Iceland Pure Spring Water, to allow us to do what we do. Thank you to our viewers, listeners, everybody. Really appreciate you guys being with us. Make sure you hit subscribe down below to help us grow our channel and never miss any of our American soccer action. I mean, I feel like I've been spitting that sentence out all day long when we do these lives on German games and soon to be Italian games. And now we're back with the MLS soccer, which is what we do. So make sure you subscribe and turn on that notification to not miss any of our awesome soccer content. We will be back with our regular episodes on Monday. We'll be doing our lives over the weekend, especially for Inter Milan and Napoli, a live stream reaction, as well as we're going to start talking about these groups. Once these get a little bit closer, we're going to preview and kind of give our big time predictions for these groups. So make sure to stay tuned for that. And thanks for joining us on this one. I hope you guys have a great night. And Nick, is there anything you need to say before we take this one home?
No, once again, shout out to Eric S., Christian Machado, Rocky Does It All, Daniel Young. Who else did we get on here? Right, Amador Rojas.
Yes.
Shout out to you one last time. Thank you guys for all joining us. Arturo Flores, as well, representing NYCFC. Thank you guys all for joining us, for having the conversation. It's crazy to think what started in Mike's trailer a few years ago. Now we're doing live broadcasts and having live conversation with fans from all over the country. This is what soccer is. This is what American soccer is. I love it. I'm excited for it. Can't wait for games to kick off.
Absolutely, Nick. Definitely appreciate everybody jumping on, and we'll talk to you guys very, very soon. No doubt about that. So, again, shout out to our sponsors, Donovan Food Brokerage and Nice Premium Iceland Pure Spring Water, for letting us do what we do. And we will see you guys on Saturday afternoon for Napoli hosting Inter Milan in the Coppa Italia second leg live stream reaction.